Most people waste entire months waiting for motivation, waiting for clarity, waiting for life to feel right. But the truth is, you don't need a new month. You need a new mindset, one that's trained daily, not just when it's convenient. If you've been feeling distracted, reactive, or just off track, this video is your reset. We're going through 10 powerful Stoic quotes that will sharpen your focus, strengthen your discipline, and bring you back to yourself. These are more than just words. They're ancient tools forged in hardship and still relevant today. You'll hear wisdom from Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, and modern reflections from the daily Stoic that you can apply immediately. This is how you take back your month. One decision, one quote, one mindset shift at a time. Before we begin, like and subscribe if you're ready to stop drifting and start living with purpose. Let's get into it.
Number 1.
Taking Plato's view, gaining perspective. There's a reason why some people remain calm even when the world around them is in chaos. It's not because they're indifferent, it's because they see differently. Plato once encouraged us to adopt the bird's eye view, to imagine ourselves rising above the earth, looking down at life not from emotion, but from elevation. This idea wasn't meant to disconnect us from reality. It was designed to reconnect us with what truly matters. When we zoom out, even the most frustrating moments lose their sting. Problems that once seemed massive shrink under the weight of perspective. Marcus Aurelius practiced this mental exercise often. In his meditations, he would remind himself that from the moon, the actions of men, our ambition, jealousy, pride, look absurd, he wrote. Consider the immensity of time behind you and the time ahead, in comparison to which your life is a mere blink. That's not a depressing thought. It's a liberating one. You stop clinging, you start choosing what's essential. And this mindset isn't reserved for philosophers. In 1971, astronaut Edgar Mitchell experienced something life-altering. As he floated in space, gazing at Earth, he felt overwhelmed by a deep sense of connection and insignificance at the same time. No borders, no nations, just one fragile planet, suspended in silence. When he returned home, the things that once preoccupied him, politics, arguments, egos, felt meaningless. He later said, "You develop an instant global consciousness, an intense dissatisfaction with the state of the world." And that dissatisfaction, that was the same fire that Stoicism aims to light within you. Not to complain, but to rise, to live from a higher plane of thought. So how do we access this without leaving the ground? It begins with awareness. The next time you're caught in traffic, stuck in an argument, or stewing in regret, pause, close your eyes. Imagine seeing yourself from above your neighborhood, then your city, then your country. Suddenly that thing you were obsessing over, it's barely a blip. Not because it doesn't matter, but because it's not worth your peace. Seneca wrote, "Philosophy calls us back from the things of the world to ourselves." It doesn't mean abandoning your responsibilities. It means approaching them with clarity. Abraham Lincoln, though not a Stoic, embodied this perfectly. When furious, he would write a letter expressing his anger, then tuck it away, never to be sent. That distance gave him power. That pause was perspective. It's not passivity. It's restraint guided by reason. We live in a culture that worships reaction, but the Stoic sees through that. The wise rise above the immediate, not to escape it, but to understand it more clearly. And from that place of vision, they choose better. So this month, practice elevation. Not by running away, but by stepping back. Look from above, and let that view shape who you become.
Number 2.
Choosing your ancestors, embracing role models. You don't need to be born into greatness to live by its code. The Stoics understood something most people still haven't grasped. Virtue isn't inherited, it's chosen. While you cannot select your biological parents, You can choose your philosophical ancestors. You can choose whose values you will carry, whose discipline you will adopt, and whose life you will quietly honor through action, not words. Marcus Aurelius begins his meditations not with lofty ideas but with gratitude for the people who shaped him. His grandfather's modesty, his father's integrity, his teacher's patience. None of these were guaranteed to him by birth. He chose to internalize them. He studied them like blueprints. That was the brilliance of his Stoicism. He never assumed virtue was his birthright. He earned it daily through deliberate imitation. Seneca gives us a Roman precedent. His own brother Gallio was adopted into another family and changed his name to reflect it. But this wasn't just a matter of legal custom. It was a public declaration of identity. The name symbolized a conscious allegiance to a new legacy. It was a reminder that a true ancestor is not the one who gave you life, but the one whose life gives you clarity, courage, and character when you need it most. Centuries later, Benjamin Franklin, a self-taught thinker with no noble lineage, followed the same path. He admired historical figures like Socrates and adopted their habits as if they were his own family. He even created a list of 13 virtues, one for each week in a cycle, that he would reflect on daily. Franklin didn't inherit his greatness. He built it slowly, by borrowing the best parts of history and applying them to his present. And that's the invitation Stoicism offers. To stop lamenting who raised you and start selecting who shapes you. You may not have grown up around discipline, but you can study Epictetus and learn it. You may not have seen patience modeled, but Marcus teaches it on every page. These figures are not relics. They are mentors waiting in the margins, if you're humble enough to listen. But here's the deeper challenge. Adopting someone as a role model is not just about admiration. It's about accountability. It's not enough to quote them. You have to live them. Don't just read about courage. Speak up when you're scared. Don't just praise self-control. Practice it when temptation strikes. Every time you choose to embody what you admire, you give your chosen ancestor new life. So this month, choose your ancestors wisely, not by blood, but by spirit. Choose the ones whose virtues you want etched into your habits. And then live in a way that, if they could see you, they would say, "He belongs to us." Because in the end, lineage fades, but legacy, that's earned one action at a time.
Number 3.
Nipping vice in the bud, early intervention. It's easy to talk about discipline once you're already in trouble, when the consequences have arrived, when the damage has been done. But the real strength, the Stoic strength, lies in cutting off the problem before it grows fangs, before it becomes a habit, before it becomes you. The Stoics were not just philosophers of endurance, they were surgeons of prevention, Seneca wrote. It is easier to exclude harmful passions than to rule them, and to deny them admittance than to control them after they have been admitted. In other words, it's not about having the willpower to wrestle with a vice after it's taken root. It's about having the wisdom to stop it before it starts. Think about a river. At its source, it's a quiet stream, gentle, harmless. But if you let it run wild without guidance, it becomes a flood, carving canyons, destroying everything in its path. Human behavior works the same way. A small indulgence, when unchecked, becomes a pattern. A pattern becomes identity. And identity, if unexamined, becomes fate. In my own life, I've learned this firsthand. I've never had to fight off an addiction to alcohol or drugs. Not because I'm stronger, but because I never let those things inside. I saw the signs early. I saw how people with enormous potential lost themselves in substances and impulses, and I made a quiet decision. I'd rather be clear than cool. I'd rather be in control than accepted. That wasn't a single moment of courage. It was a daily choice to walk away early before anything could sink its hooks in. We often overestimate how strong we'll be once we're already deep in temptation, but the Stoics knew that's not the time to be brave. The time to be brave is before the storm. It's in the little no's, the unnoticed rejections, the early exits from bad rooms and bad conversations. Take the example of C.S. Lewis. He once wrote, "You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending." That's what Stoicism is about, not denying the pull of vice, but refusing to let it shape your story. Not by fighting it once it has power, but by spotting it at its weakest. When it's still just a thought, a whisper, a suggestion. So this month, don't wait until you're drowning to learn how to swim. Watch your habits at the doorway. Pay attention to what you tolerate, the things you laugh off, dismiss, or downplay. Those are the seedlings of suffering. You don't need superhuman strength if you act before weakness takes root. You just need awareness, humility, and a firm boundary. Nip it in the bud, not because you're afraid of failure, but because you respect your potential too much to gamble with it.
Number 4.
Seeing inspiration instead of envy, a non-zero-sum view. Envy is a poison that disguises itself as fairness. It whispers, "Why them and not me?" And it convinces us that every gain someone else makes is a loss to our own worth. But the Stoics knew this was a trap, a zero-sum view of life, where someone else's success diminishes your own, leads only to bitterness, distraction, and stagnation. Instead, the wise take a different path. They see achievement and greatness not as a threat, but as inspiration. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that nature doesn't compete within itself. The sun doesn't resent the moon. The oak doesn't envy the pine. Each simply fulfills its nature, and in doing so, contributes to the harmony of the whole. So why should we behave differently? In our world today, it's easier than ever to fall into comparison. A single scroll on social media can make you feel behind, unworthy, invisible. But comparison only hurts when your view is narrow. When you forget that someone else's story is not your measuring stick. The Stoic antidote to envy is perspective. It's remembering that you're not in a race, you're in a process, and someone else's rise is not your fall. It's simply proof that rising is possible. Statues of great individuals, philosophers, artists, leaders, weren't built to make us feel small. They were built to remind us what's possible when a human being lives aligned with purpose. You can walk past a statue of Epictetus and think, "I'll never be that wise." Or you can walk past and say, "He did it, so can I." That choice belongs to you. Consider Maya Angelou, born into hardship, silenced for years by trauma, and surrounded by inequality. She had every reason to be bitter. But she didn't let envy shape her life. She let greatness inspire her. She studied the works of Shakespeare and ancient thinkers, not to resent their brilliance, but to absorb it, to let it lift her. She once said, "I come as one, but I stand as 10,000. That's what a non-zero-sum mindset looks like. You let others' excellence expand your own. And the Stoics would ask you, when you see someone succeeding, are you jealous or are you taking notes? Because admiration can be a fuel if you're willing to study it deeply, not dismiss it out of ego. This month, reject the lie that success is scarce. There is no fixed pie. There's room for all of us to grow, to shine, to rise. So the next time envy creeps in, meet it with this question: what can I learn from them? Then use that energy not to complain, but to build. Envy subtracts, inspiration multiplies. Always choose the one that makes you better.
Number 5.
Asking for help, recognizing interdependence. There's a kind of strength that doesn't shout. It doesn't posture. It doesn't perform. It simply admits the truth. We need each other. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology caught up. While they emphasized self-discipline and independence, they never promoted isolation. In fact, they taught that asking for help is not weakness, it's wisdom. Marcus Aurelius, writing as Emperor of Rome, one of the most powerful men in history, confessed openly in Meditations how much he owed to others, his character, his habits, his clarity, all gifts shaped by teachers, friends, and mentors. He didn't pretend to be self-made. He recognized that no one truly is. As he wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way. And sometimes the way forward is letting someone else lend you a hand." Seneca, too, warned against the illusion of total independence. He said, "No one can live happily who has regard to himself alone, and transforms everything into a question of his own utility." In simpler terms, if your life is only about you, it will collapse under its own weight, because no structure stands strong without support. And yet, modern culture glorifies the lone wolf. We're told to grind in silence, to never need anyone, to wear exhaustion like a badge of honor. But this mindset is a trap. It breaks communities, erodes relationships, and turns vulnerability into shame. The Stoics sees through this illusion, because real strength is measured by your ability to build with others, not just endure alone. There's a personal example I return to often. Early in my career, I struggled quietly. I wanted to appear competent, polished, ahead of the curve, so I kept my questions to myself. I nodded in meetings, I carried the weight, and I burned out. It wasn't until I asked for guidance from someone wiser, humbler, that I began to grow in a meaningful way. The help I avoided out of pride turned out to be the breakthrough I needed most. And that's the point. Asking for help isn't about dependency, it's about clarity. It's about recognizing your limits so you can expand them. The Stoics didn't deny human need, they embraced it, but with intention. Epictetus reminded us, "One man's misfortune is a warning to all," meaning we're not just connected when things are easy. We're responsible for each other, especially when they're not. So this month, if you're struggling, ask. If you're lost, reach out. And if someone near you is in need, offer, not because it's convenient, but because interdependence is the architecture of a strong life. The same way a muscle grows through resistance, the soul grows through connection. The moment you stop pretending you're invincible is the moment you become unshakable. Number 6, grabbing the other handle, changing perspectives. Every situation has two handles. One leads to bitterness, the other to clarity. One makes you feel like a victim, the other gives you your power back. Epictetus said this plainly. Everything has two handles, and we should grab the one that makes it easier to carry. That's not denial, that's discipline. A trained mind knows how to choose the handle that leads to peace. Not because life is easy, but because your perspective is sharp. Most people default to the worst handle. When something bad happens, they immediately assume it's personal, unfair, or permanent. But the Stoic pauses. The Stoic asks, is there another way to see this? That simple question is a doorway to freedom. Let's take a real-world example. William Seabrook was a journalist and travel writer who spiraled into alcohol addiction. He ended up committing himself to a mental hospital, not out of desperation, but out of awareness. He wrote candidly about the experience in his book Asylum, describing not just his struggle, but the clarity that came from confronting it. He chose the other handle. Instead of shame, he found understanding. Instead of hiding, he exposed the truth. And through that choice, he turned suffering into service. That's the heart of Stoicism, transforming what happens to us by how we hold it. Marcus Aurelius faced unending political chaos, personal loss, and the pressure of ruling an empire. But he constantly reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. It's not about changing the facts. It's about choosing what the facts will mean to you. This doesn't mean being naive. It doesn't mean pretending everything is fine. It means refusing to let your first emotional reaction dictate your long-term mindset. It's strength through space, courage through curiosity. Instead of saying, "This is the worst," you ask, "What's the lesson here?" Instead of saying, "Why me?" you ask, "What now?" In my own life, this shift has saved me. When I face criticism, I used to react with anger. Now I pause, I ask if there's something true in it, even if it stings. When plans fall through, I look for what the moment might be freeing me for, not just what it's taking from me. And every time I grab that other handle, I feel the burden lighten. Not because it's gone, but because I'm no longer dragging it the wrong way. So this month, when something frustrates you, hurts you, delays you, stop, ask yourself, which handle am I holding? Then gently, intentionally grab the other one, the one that helps you carry it, the one that makes you stronger, not later now. Number 7, creating slack, not being dependent on fortune. If your peace depends on everything going right, you're not at peace. You're just lucky. And luck, as the Stoics knew, is a terrible strategy for life. True strength comes from building slack into your system, from designing a life that can bend without breaking, one that doesn't rise and fall with every shift of external fortune. Seneca warned that fortune rarely stands still. One day it lifts you, the next it leaves you. But the wise man, he wrote, is not disturbed by this. Why? Because he's not tethered to what fortune gives or takes. He has built inner reserves, emotional slack, spiritual give. He knows how to keep going when the world stops cooperating. We see this wisdom echoed in the life of Warren Buffett. Known for his discipline and long-term thinking, Buffett doesn't bet his peace on short-term gains or unpredictable markets. He keeps cash reserves. He builds in margin. He prepares not for if things will go wrong, but when. That's not pessimism, that's resilience. And that's exactly how the Stoic lives. Not anxious, but aware. The problem today is that many people live right on the edge. Financially, emotionally, spiritually. There's no room to breathe. One comment ruins their day. One missed opportunity unravels their identity. One unexpected bill, and everything collapses. That's not life. That's survival. And the Stoics didn't survive. They thrived by living on principles that worked no matter what was happening around them. This principle of slack isn't just about money. It's about energy, attention, time. It's about leaving a little space between stimulus and response, leaving a little room between plans and expectations. That gap is where your peace lives. If your calendar is so full that one delay ruins everything, you're not in control, you're at the mercy of the world. In my own life, I've learned to ask one powerful question before saying yes to anything. If this goes wrong, do I still have peace? If the answer is no, I'm overextended, I've built too tightly. So I pull back, I remove the non-essential, I give myself breathing room. And almost always that margin makes me better, not worse. It makes me more present, more clear, more prepared. So this month, look at where you've been depending on fortune. Is it your job, a relationship, a specific outcome? Then ask, what would it look like to build slack there? Could you leave earlier? Save more? Say no more often? Could you release the need to control every detail? Because the more slack you build, the less control the world has over your peace. And that's the Stoics' goal. Not to control life, but to be unshaken by it. Number 8, not taking the long way around. The good and beautiful is in front of you. We spend so much of our lives chasing the perfect life, the perfect moment, the perfect version of ourselves. But the Stoics warned us, what we seek is often right in front of us. We just take the longest, hardest path to realize it. Why? Because we confuse difficulty with value. But as Marcus Aurelius said, very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. This mindset is radical in a world addicted to more time, more money, more success. But the truth is, most of what you think you need to be happy, you already have. You just haven't slowed down long enough to see it. Seneca put it clearly, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." The real poverty is not material. It's the feeling of never arriving. Many people believe that peace, love, and fulfillment are distant mountains they must climb. But more often, they're quiet gardens right beside them, ignored because they're too simple to seem valuable. You think you need to earn joy, but the Stoics would ask, what if you only need to notice it? We complicate life because we don't trust simplicity. If something comes easily, we assume it must not be worthwhile. But that's the illusion. Real joy doesn't shout. It lives in the morning stillness, in meaningful work, in unrushed conversations. And unless we train our minds to see it, we walk right past it. Consider the story of Leo Tolstoy. At the height of his fame, with wealth and literary genius behind him, he was still tormented by despair. So he stepped away, he simplified, he turned to manual labor, family, and nature. And only then did he begin to feel peace. Not because life became perfect, but because he stopped chasing and started noticing. And that's the Stoic point. The good and beautiful are not found in some day. They're found in this day, in this breath, in the act of doing what's right. Not for attention, but because it aligns with who you are. When we overcomplicate our path, we delay our arrival. We tell ourselves we'll feel worthy after we hit the next milestone. But the Stoic knows virtue is the reward, peace is the byproduct of presence. Meaning is not out there. It's in what you do right now. So this month, pause and ask, what am I overlooking in my chase for more? What have I stepped over in pursuit of something shinier? Then return to the obvious, to the present, because what you're seeking isn't far away. It's waiting for you to stop running. Number 9, resisting the urge to fight, finding peace. Not every battle is worth fighting, and not every insult deserves your energy. The Stoics were not pacifists, but they were masters of restraint. They understood that the real fight is not out there. It's in here. And when you learn to master your reactivity, you stop being ruled by provocation. You start leading yourself. Epictetus taught that some things are up to us and some things are not. That line may sound simple, but it's one of the most powerful filters for peace. When someone offends you, disagrees with you, or misunderstands you, you have two options: react and become a slave to their energy, or pause and reclaim your sovereignty. We've been conditioned to believe that silence is weakness, that if we don't clap back, defend ourselves, or correct every false narrative, we're somehow losing. But the Stoic knows better. Restraint is not surrender. It's strength under control. It's power that doesn't need performance or validation. A calm mind is a deadly force. It cannot be manipulated. Marcus Aurelius modeled this countless times as emperor. He faced betrayal, criticism, and political games. And yet in his meditations, he reminded himself, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. That's not passivity, that's superiority of character. He knew that the moment he stooped to the level of his enemies, he lost the clarity that made him great. In our daily lives, the urge to fight shows up subtly. A snide comment, an email that feels disrespectful, a stranger who cuts us off, and immediately the ego lights up. Prove yourself. Put them in their place. But the Stoic breathes, the Stoic watches, the Stoic asks, Is this mine to carry? Because more often than not, it isn't. Most provocations are just noise, echoes of someone else's pain. There's a story about the poet Maya Angelou. She once said, "You may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them." That is Stoicism in action. She knew that dignity wasn't about domination. It was about refusing to let others shrink who you are. You don't rise by attacking others. You rise by remaining whole. In my own experience, the moments I've regretted most were the ones where I reacted too quickly, where I met fire with fire, and even if I was right, I lost something. My peace, my clarity, my momentum. But the moments I walked away, the times I chose the higher road, that's when I felt strongest, not because I won, but because I didn't need to. So this month, when the world tempts you to fight, pause, ask yourself, is this useful? Is this mine? Then choose calm over chaos. Choose discipline over drama. Because peace isn't found by fighting harder, it's found by fighting less and mastering more of yourself. Number 10, the obstacle is the way, turning trials into tools. Most people spend their lives trying to go around difficulty. They avoid discomfort, resist resistance, and dream of a life without problems. But the Stoics believe something radically different. They believe the obstacle is the way, that life isn't about avoiding challenges, but learning how to transform them into stepping stones. Marcus Aurelius said it best, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." He wasn't being poetic. He was being precise. As emperor, he faced betrayal, disease, personal grief, and political chaos. And yet, he didn't collapse under the weight. He reframed it. He didn't ask, "Why me?" He asked, "How can I use this?" And that shift in perspective, that mental pivot, is where the Stoic finds strength. The Stoic sees difficulty as design, not because suffering is romantic, but because response is everything. You don't get to choose every obstacle, but you do get to choose what it makes of you. You can become bitter, or you can become better. You can fall apart, or you can fall into purpose. The obstacle is not punishment, it's raw material. It's your test, it's your training ground. Take Thomas Edison. When his entire factory burned down, destroying years of research, he didn't spiral. He didn't rage. Instead, he famously said, "Thank God all our mistakes were burned up. Now we can start fresh." That is the Stoic mindset. Not about pretending things are fine, but about using reality as it is. He didn't just endure the loss. He converted it. He alchemized it into progress. Here's the key. Every hardship holds something useful. Maybe it's a lesson, maybe it's a course correction, maybe it's a wake-up call. But if you spend your time avoiding the fire, you miss what it's trying to burn away. You miss what it's trying to forge in you, Seneca reminds us. Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body. In other words, you don't get stronger by waiting, you get stronger by walking through. In my own life, the turning points rarely came wrapped in comfort. They came as breakdowns, disappointments, failures, but each one became a doorway, not because they were easy, but because they forced me to build something deeper. Clearer values, sharper focus, unshakable self-trust. That's the beauty of the obstacle. It demands your evolution. So this month, don't look for ease. Look for clarity. Ask, what is this moment trying to teach me? What is life trying to strip away? What strength is this difficulty asking me to develop? Then step forward, use it, shape it, because the obstacle in front of you is not the end of your path. It is the path, and your freedom begins the moment you stop resisting and start rising. The Stoics didn't live perfect lives. They lived examined ones. And that's your invitation this month. Don't try to control everything. Don't chase what's out of reach. Just return. daily to these truths. These quotes are more than words. They're reminders, tools, anchors. Use them. If any part of this resonated, if you feel a little clearer, a little stronger, don't let it fade. Bookmark this. Rewatch it. Better yet, live it. And if you want more Stoic insights like this, hit that subscribe button. New videos every day. Quiet power, lasting change. Stay steady, stay focused, and remember, you are the project.